One of the coolest things about being on an intentional manifestation, spirituality, and growth journey over the past 5.5 years has been how many different resources have come into my life and how many new awarenesses that I've been able to uncover, knowing that it's still just the beginning of that path. And that's why on today's podcast episode, I wanted to bring on my past client, Kayleen Wills, who is an Akashic Records Healer, who helps people really understand the blueprint of their soul and their energy so that they can move forward in a more aligned way with answers from their actual soul on what's going to create the greatest level of fulfillment, money, abundance, love, so on and so forth in their life. And back at the beginning of November, I feel so grateful that Kayleen and I had this Instagram conversation that turned into her doing an Akashic Records reading for me. And this is the first ever Akashic Records reading that I've had. And if you're like, what the fuck does that mean? Sit tight, listen to this podcast episode because Kayleen's going to fully break it down for us. But essentially, in this Akashic Record reading, Kayleen was talking to or channeling my Akashic keepers, which are the keepers of the records of your soul, and asked them the question, what is Kat's soul purpose? And I'm actually going to play you the channeled clip that she had for me in the reading that she did for me in just a moment. But what she said came back so accurate to everything that I've been talking about thus far on my podcast, in the coaching that I do, in everything that I've been led to. And it was just such incredible confirmation of the fact that I'm on the right path and that there's still so much more to uncover. And you'll hear in the podcast episode some other really cool moments from the reading that I'm not going to play directly for you here on the podcast, but we'll talk about in the conversation that have confirmed the direction that I'm taking things in, because there's been so many incredible shifts and changes over the past year and a half of my life, where there's been moments where I've actually felt really scared or like I was making the wrong decision. And to have this reading from Kayleen and confirm from the records of my soul, from my Akashic records, that I actually am on the right path and that there's still so much more to uncover and so much more greatness to receive, was just such a cool experience. So let's take a listen to this clip from Kayleen's reading.
Specifically, what is Kat's purpose in this lifetime? So, big word coming up is change. Change, transformation, remembering who you always were and honoring where you came from and always paying tribute to that. But then, like, you've moved into your life now and, like, you've done things beyond what are comprehensible to a lot of people on the same journey, or maybe people that haven't even considered a life like you live to be even possible for them. So your purpose, let me like fine tune this. I'm just kidding. Like honestly, like you with a lot of money in a good way in order to serve others, to see that they too can be abundant. And I'm getting also a lot of feminine energy, like it's okay to be in the flow of things. And I don't know if that's like, like correlating with the like flowy dress. So that's like a lot of random information, I feel like. Let's get a cat soul purpose. Change the lives of others through how she changes hers, and not like forcing, like more of an inspirational change, which I feel like you're definitely always already doing. And I'm hearing like, don't be disappointed if you think that it was supposed to be something like more extravagant than that, but there's always more room to grow. You've only just begun on your journey, and oh no, I'm getting full body chills. There's so many other layers and things that are going to come up for you, and even maybe more challenges in a good way, because by you mastering those and coming out on the other side, you are able to teach others to do the same. And you have a very unique, beautiful way to teach things.
I mean, if you know anything about me, and if you've been here listening to the podcast, you will know how accurate that is. And so, with all of this being said, I just want to emphasize how awesome of a resource I think getting your Akashic Records read is. And if anybody's wanting to explore this further, as well as understand their human design, understand their unique and specific astrology, if you're wanting to understand your life path number, if you're wanting just an overall holistic understanding of your energy using all of these different beautiful healing modalities like the Akashic Records and those other ones that I just mentioned, then definitely go connect with Kayleen. I have left all of her information down below in the show notes. And I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this conversation because the glow up, the transformation, the just massive amount of growth that I have seen Kayleen go through in the past 2 years of knowing her has been just like astronomical, and you'll definitely be able to hear that story as well as just where she's at now and the true abundance and happiness and love that she has found through learning her soul's purpose, through connecting with herself on a deeper level, connecting with her energy, and using these beautiful tools. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this podcast episode with Kayleen. What's up, and welcome to the That's So Rich podcast, the show that's redefining wealth and helping you manifest a life that is rich in every single way. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, transformation coach, manifestation expert, and spiritual guide, and together we're going to create your happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest life. I'm so happy you're here. Let's do this thing. Alrighty, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of That's So Rich. Today, I am joined by Miss Kayleen, which I'm so excited to have you here. A few years back, do you remember what year it was? 2021?
2022.
2022. So in 2022, we found each other online, and Kayleen was actually a part of my academy, the Abundant AF Babe Academy. And at the time, you were working in a like 9-to-5 job that you weren't super happy with and wanting to create shifts and changes in your lives. And you've done exactly that. And it's been so beautiful to watch the journey of like where you were when I first met you versus where you are now. So I will let you share just like who you are today, doing the work that you're doing in the world and the journey that led you to this point.
All right. Get your popcorn ready now. Thank you. Thank you so, so much for having me. I'm so excited. Like, this is honestly a little surreal. You guys, I can visually remember when I was standing in my kitchen in this exact house, and Kat and I were talking, and it was an initial investment for the academy, and I had never spent money like that on myself before. And it was like over a course of, I don't remember for sure, like a few weeks. And holy shit, like the stuff I had learned in that time frame, it was the domino effect basically to like where I am now. So I'll jump back to that, but like where I am now. So I have since left that job, and I I am reading Akashic Records for other people. Like it if you would have asked me even a year ago, I would have been like, what do you mean? Like I am loving my spiritual mystical journey, and I do energetic blueprints for people, Akashic record readings, astrology, human design, all that fun stuff. And the more I do them, just the more I learn and the more I get to interact with different people. And it's just like I said, surreal. Mm-hmm. Now I'm sitting here talking to Kat, who helped me start the journey.
So beautiful. So with all of that, because when you were in the academy, you were in the job that you didn't really like, and you were going to pursue real estate, if I remember correctly.
You are? Yeah, you're right. So like I'm doing that still. Yeah. I'm a multifaceted girly. But when I started, I actually found Kat through a podcast. And you guys, I never listened to podcasts before. My whole spiritual journey kind of started after I had my daughter. And I was like, okay, like I want to show her that I'm happy and I'm doing something I love and I'm like in service to other people. And what I was doing then, it just wasn't, wasn't aligned. It wasn't, wasn't me. I just always knew there was something else. I feel like there's a lot of people I've talked to that are just like, yeah, there's, something else out there for me, but I don't know what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
I did just like, I know Kat's story is like this too, where you like get the good grades and go to college and like do everything that society and your parents, bless them, tell you what you should do. And then you get to this point where you've done all those things and you're like, I still feel unhappy. And
Yep.
it's not, yeah, it's not like I was unhappy with my life as a whole, but more of like the like purpose kind of peace and career and what I should be doing.
Yep.
And so, yeah, podcasts, that's where I started listening to. Was reading books. I read so much more now than I used to. And I was listening to a podcast. You were on there. And then I was a stalker and looked at your Instagram, looked through your stuff, and we chatted. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to do it. And you are really where I learned about like mindset and manifestation and how to make things happen. And I love how my journey started that way because I feel like everyone's spiritual journey is different, but I can personally tell like people in the spiritual community that do not like take into account the mindset and manifestation piece, still
Mm-hmm.
talking about money badly or themselves badly and things like that. So I'm just like so incredibly grateful how my journey kind of led that way.
Absolutely. Me too. And so for the listeners that are like, okay, she reads Akashic Records, like, what the fuck is an Akashic Record? What does that
Yes.
mean?
Yeah. So I'm gonna back up to how like I found it too, or really it like found me. Another podcast thing. So I'm finding people through podcasts. That's why I love this. That's why I started my own too and connecting with people. I think it's so cool that way because you have this, free platform for people to share on. And
Yeah.
I found Emily the Mystic, actually. I don't know if you've heard of her.
No.
I'll send you her profile. She's amazing. But she's based out of Philly and she is very like in depth in like Akashic records and galactic things and a very good channeler. And I had just, you know, looked at her stuff. I was like, oh yeah, what are the Akashic records? So I'm like looking at her stuff and when I'm first hearing that, and I'm sure some people, if they've heard it before, which I had never heard it until last year, you're probably thinking like some old library. Like I was like, it's probably some like cool old library in Egypt or something. Like that's where my
Yeah.
mind went to. No, that's not that's not it. It is actually a metaphysical library. So it
Mhm.
is not physical. It is something you connect to, and it is something that really all of us have the opportunity to do that with the right tools, which I think is really cool. I personally cannot teach on that, but I know there are resources that can. So, like to connect with the Akashic records, you just get into a very meditative like channeling state and the way I was taught. So I actually through Emily took a certification through her. So it was a 12-week thing over the summer
Yeah.
where oh my gosh, like so much information about them and just how they really just hold all of the information of everything ever,
Hmm.
which is crazy. Yeah, it's just like sometimes like when you sit and think of that, you're like, holy shit. Like that's
Hmm.
so much. So like everything about your soul. So everything happening like now, past, future, you can find information and guidance and do tons of healing. I think that's a really big thing. And I think personally, like the Akashic records are going to be a modality that is used a lot more in the coming years. I know your average person probably still thinks this is a little out there. But hopefully, like if it piques your interest, you definitely have probably worked in them before in a past life or have some sort of connection to them, or you're definitely probably an old soul. Like I said with Kat, I we'll talk about this, but I did a reading for her and I was like, yeah, you're definitely like an old soul.
Yeah.
For sure. So hopefully that was kind of a good explanation, but a metaphysical library that you are like connecting to and channeling, and they get opened basically like a prayer, and I go into my own a lot. And then in order to go into someone else's, you need to ask for their permission. I think that's just like ethically, we're not looking to do anything wrong to anyone. It's a place of love, light, and truth. So you may find, I guess, some things that have happened in a past life or something that are hard and need healing, but you just know that the Akashic Records, like your guides and stuff, are going to meet you with like the love, light, and truth. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. That's beautiful. And so in your exploration of your own Akashic records, what has that done for you to be able to, like you said, heal and transform and like kind of set forth on the path that you're on now?
Yeah, it really just opened up doors for me because when Emily and I had first worked together, she had done a reading for me because it really piqued my interest, and I was like, okay, like this is cool. Like I don't know what I'm getting into, but let's try it. So I did a reading with her, and I was just like mind blown. Just the stuff that came through and just how I physically felt. If you ever have like an Akashic Records reading in person or even over Zoom, like that energy just, it doesn't matter if we're in person or not. Just like we can feel each other's energy right now. And
Mhm.
I just remember this is so funny, but the first time after I had a reading, I felt like I was like up in the clouds the rest of the day. I had to really ground myself because that's just like how, I don't know, like potent that energy is, especially if it's something you've never felt before.
Yep. Totally, totally. Yeah. So with the records, so Kayleen essentially did a reading for me and I got to watch all of it yesterday. And there were multiple moments as she was going through that I was either like, ah, or like, oh my God. And there was lots of moments of confirmation as well, where I was like, oh yeah, like all of this feels spot on and so accurate. But what would you say for like the average person before we dive into mine? What would you
Yeah.
say like the average person is looking for by opening their Akashic records, or like what are they looking to get from that experience?
Yes, that is a great question. And I think that a lot of people honestly are probably looking for, if they're not feeling like if they're feeling lost, I guess, if they're not feeling like things are aligned in their life right now, if they're just feeling like I don't know what the hell to do, because I feel like personally I was like that. And I feel like a lot of the times when I've done readings for other people, it's definitely like, okay, what are my next steps? And what are some actionable things I can take? Because I mean, you're not going to go into your Akashic records and be like, oh my gosh, like, who is the love of my life? What is his name? Where can I find him?
Mm-hmm.
Or like what is the job I should be having? Like you're gonna get guidance and you're only gonna get the information you need. I think this is the biggest and most important piece is you're gonna get the information you need at that point in time. You are not, I'm getting full body chills as I say this. You are not gonna get like some scary information. Like if it freaks you out that you're gonna hear something you don't want to hear, you're not gonna hear it. On the flip side, like if you're blocking something, if you're like you kind of already know something and you're like, no, 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 like trying to just like push it away, you're going to not hear it either. So you're going to come into the records getting the information that you need on your journey. And I love to always, like when I'm doing a reading, give guidance and make sure I'm asking the keepers like actionable steps too,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to walk away from the reading like the reaction you had, but also with some notes being like, okay, like these are some things I could do next. And you can ask about your business, you can ask about your career or your family or just you personally. I think it's fantastic to just like start with yourself too, because I know like for you and a lot of your work and me too, like a lot of how all of this has manifested is starting here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, 100%. And so, yeah, with just to give like the listeners some context on all of this, like we said, Kayleen did my Akashic records yesterday
Mhm.
and channeled through what the Akashic, do you call them the Akashic keepers?
Yeah, so they're like the Akashic record keepers, and
Yep.
each person has their like own team.
Cool. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Akashic Keepers and the information that they gave to you surrounding my records, some big ones that stuck out to me because one of the first questions you asked was, what is the essence of
Hmm.
Cat's soul? And it was like playful.
Yes.
And even in that experience, you heard like a child's laughter.
Hmm.
And that one of the things that I recognize for myself is the times in life where I'm taking life seriously is
Hmm.
like when abundance is not flowing into my life. It's like when my yeah, like when I'm in this place of like taking things hyper seriously and like freaking out or in a state of panic or like whatever it may be. Of course, energetically, that's like not the best for manifesting what it is that you want into your life, but I really recognize the thing that always brings me back to a state and place of truth inside of myself is when I'm
Hmm.
feeling like that playful version of myself, which was really cool to hear that like that was the first thing that you asked and that was what came through.
Yes, I love that. I do remember that part. And I also remember it was like I saw like almost like a lion, like that
Yes.
Leo playful energy. And that's how like the information will come to me like in I'll like hear it in my mind or just like see visuals in my mind's eye. And yeah, with cat or like even feel it, like feeling it, like I felt like so light like when I opened your records and like it was like fun and playful and I think yeah, that's a good reminder.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things that you said was that my soul's purpose is change and transformation. And that's change and transformation for myself, but also to be able to change and transform and like lead by example, not ever have to like force people into changing themselves, but instead be able to just lead in this way of creating the transformation for myself, making the change in
Hmm.
my own life, doing things that a lot of people look at and be like, how the hell is that even possible? Because they don't think it's possible for themselves. But because I then do it, am able to like inspire other people to come along and join in their own way to create the change and transformation that they're wanting to see.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And when I mean like I know what you do in a sense. So like when that was coming through, I just like felt like, reaffirmed through that. And that like pieces of that also came through like the energetic blueprint I did too, which that is I've created it and it has like your human design and your astrology and even like your life path number and cats just like everything just like meshed together so well and like the information I'm getting in the records just kind of reaffirmed that too.
It's so cool because a lot of these different like ways of knowing the with
Hmm.
the human design astrology, I'm super new to life path numbers. When you telling me that I was a life path number 33 was
33.
like first time I've ever heard that or like known anything about it. So what's the purpose of a life path number?
So anyone can do it. It's really easy. You guys can do it like right now if you're listening to. You literally just take, so it's part of numerology, and I have like, little knowledge of that compared to other things, but I've got some books. I told you guys I'm a reader. So my numerology books, you take your birthday and you basically add it up. So, like with Kat's birthday, we added the year, added the day and the month she was born, and you want to get down to a single digit,
Mhm.
unless you come up with the numbers 11, 22, or 33, because those are master life path numbers. So they take basically the energy of like for an 11, they would take an energy of a 2 because 1 plus 1 is 2. And like with yours, it'd be like 3 plus 3 is 6. So you have like the energy of a 6, which is amplified. And yours was like the ultimate healing journey. So if you, I know, I was like, I love that so much. That's definitely her. But each number has a vibe, 1 through 9, and then you've got those master numbers that are kind of just like definitely old souls, and they're taking it to basically another level. So you
Yeah.
can, yeah, add up your birthday and the year you were born, And then you'll get to that number. And honestly, you could look it up on the internet. I have my different resources where I have that information. I think mine's a 3 off the top of my head. I'm trying to think, which is more like communicating and stuff like that. Fun. But yeah, just like Google it and then you can kind of see, or you can have a blueprint reading done too, and we can chat about it. So
Totally. Absolutely. And so what would you say, having all of like the knowledge of knowing your energy as well as like accessing the Akashic records, with all of that information, do you feel as though you go into a mode of like, what am I supposed to do now? Or is it like, I know what I'm supposed to do now?
I think you get into a mode of like, I know what I'm supposed to do because you learn to trust yourself more. And I think the key to anything, like anyone you work with, you should always get that feeling of, okay, like they're going to teach me these things about myself so that I can use it to empower myself. And like, I'm still the one, in charge. Like, we're not looking to outside resources for necessarily like what to do next all the time. Like, yes,
Yep.
you may need some guidance, but ultimately the most important thing is that like you are making your decisions. So I think with all these different modalities, like for me personally, like all this stuff I've learned about myself, it's almost like a foundation. And now I'm gonna get like into a house. We're gonna talk about a house because I also sell real estate.
Yeah.
But no, it's like a solid foundation. You're like, okay, these are the things that my soul picked in this lifetime, and like they had to have picked them for a reason. You know, let's use these gifts. Like I talked about Kat's soul gifts, and like those are things that she's good at. And you can like build on those and like, okay, like with your human design, you're like, I'm a generator, so I've got all this energy and I can work it, but I also have to learn how to say no,
Yeah.
which is super important. And I just knowing maybe if something's not in alignment for you, like if you have a big question and you're like, yeah, I'd really like to get guidance from like my guides or like what do I do next? We can even go in and be like, okay, like how aligned are you with, your life purpose right now or your mission, and get guidance on, next action steps for that. And let me tell you guys, here's a secret. A lot of things don't make any fucking sense. When you're manifesting stuff, when you are like becoming the best version, most aligned version of yourself, you like things will not make logical sense to other people and sometimes not even yourself. And it really only makes sense when you're looking back. I don't know if you've experienced this a lot, but
Oh,
this is
1000%. I literally the past year and 6 months have been that for me. I'm like, none of this makes sense. Keep moving forward.
you're like, thanks, guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that new. That's the thing I love. I'm like so grateful for this life because like we get this journey and we get that growth and we're learning these things and like these foundational pieces, like really knowing yourself at a soul level helps you build that house of like trust with yourself and with the universe. And
Yep.
like you trusting yourself, living high vibrationally, girl, you're just gonna like emit that to everyone else in your life, which is what we need.
Totally. As you're saying all of this, what's coming up for me is one of the questions that I had you ask the Akashic Keepers for me was about like my love life and romance, because I have been able to build the business. I've been able to like manifest living in New York City, like do things that I never thought were going to be possible for little old me from Gunnison, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And the one area of my life that I've always had so much like frustration or sadness or letdown or yeah, just like pain in has been romance. And in every like I've only had like 3 psychic readings in the past. But like in every psychic reading I've ever had, if I ask about romance, they're like, you don't even need to focus on that at the moment. And then like I had you ask the Akashic Keepers about romance, and the answer was so vague again. Where it was like, I remember the answer was something about a bookstore.
Oh
Like,
my gosh. Yeah, that I was like, I don't know if I want to say this.
yeah, it was like, you're
Like, go
like,
to a
I don't,
bookstore
if don't know if this makes any sense, but like I'm getting a bookstore and
or maybe something with books. Yeah.
and so what do you find in like moments like that where I guess I mean what's coming up for me is like I feel like I'm depending too much on like external validation to like validate
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going to find the romance that like I desire versus like you're saying these tools are such valuable tools to be able to trust yourself and know
Mm-hmm.
yourself and your soul's path and that you're on the right path and all of the things. And so like in those moments with like these tools where you're not getting the clarity, is it because you're depending too much on external to get what it is that you want from them?
I think there might be a little like, I don't know if I want to say the word like blockage or like resistance there. If like you're hanging on too tightly to, the outcome and yeah, like those external things, that I mean, that also could be why I didn't get a whole lot coming in. Coming in about that either. That would be a spot where it might be good to also dive in a little deeper if we ever had the chance to do like an hour-long session and just be like, okay, like what is the root cause of this? Like right now, why am I seem to be repelling these people, or why do I seem to like, or you're getting into the same situation? It might
Yep.
have a connection to do with a past life too.
No.
You're like, ill.
Okay, so I'm super curious about that because I've heard that before. How can past life karma affect your current life?
Okay, this is gonna like, I feel like every time I talk about this, people are like, what? Okay, so I am no scientist, but basically, how it's explained to me and how I've heard it from multiple people too is that like everything is happening at once.
Yep.
So, past, present, future, like you are basically your soul. So, I love how this was explained to me, and this might be helpful for you too. So, like this, when we're thinking about the Akashic Records too. So, let's like think of like your soul as like a tree, and it's got like all these roots, like tons, and those are like all your different lives. And so, like, you're
Mm-hmm.
feeding all this information into this one thing. And then, like, your consciousness is like here now, like this is where we are right now, we're talking to each other, but you've still got a lot of stuff going on. And what's going on past life, I mean, that just, as a human, that just makes more sense to us to say past life,
Totally.
could just like energetically be affecting you now, or you could have some like, honestly, some like oaths or vows that you did in a past life. Oh,
Wait,
I'm
say
like,
that again?
I know. I'm like, this is like
Oh,
coming into
some
me now.
oaths
Like
or
an oath
vows.
or vow or like agreements you made in a past life. If you were like, maybe a past partner or something did something to you and you were like, nope, I do not want anything to do with that again.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
could be something. And that's something that like I would want to dive into like over an hour-long session just to like, okay, let's find. And that's basically like with my hour-long readings is where you get more into the healing work and where
Mm-hmm.
you could physically feel like change. Like we want to take that past life and let's say this is just an example, but like yeah, like you had a past life where you're like, I don't want anything to do with romantic relationships again, blah blah blah, and you said this vow or oath or whatever. We're going to find the root cause of that, go into that past life, or the keepers could just tell us about it and like just clear that energy out. And like
Mm-hmm.
you'll feel it by like either like physically like shaking or crying or like yawning a lot when all that energy is leaving your body.
Yeah.
And it's just like across all planes and times, like now this is done. We are
Whoa.
moving forward.
Cool.
So yes.
I love that. That's so interesting. I don't think I've ever talked about this on a podcast before, but last October, I went to a psychic here in New York City, and she said that I have past life karma that is blocking me from receiving the financial abundance, like the like highest level of financial abundance, as well as like romantic love that I could have in this lifetime. and that I like needed to clear it out, but she felt really scammy. So I was like, fuck this, not going back to her. There was actually like a whole on like psychic scandal that like place had that literally is like in the New York Times and stuff like that. So I was like, I'm good. I don't need to focus on any of that. And like, I'm not even going to think about it because I've always been under the impression of like what we have in this lifetime is from this lifetime and not from past lifetimes. But it's super interesting to think about it in that way of like, oh yeah, this could be present because everything is present and everything exists at the same time versus it being from way back. It's all happening right now.
Yeah, like yeah, you can't think of it like, oh, it happened so long ago, so whatever. But no, in like my journey of like learning the Akashic Records and all these different ways to help heal people, like past life and like inner child work are the biggest things. Those are the biggest things. And especially like me on my own journey, there were quite a few past lives. I think a big one is also around like visibility, especially as women, because there's, the witch wound and just not wanting to be seen, especially when you get into this kind of world of like spiritual, mystical things. That was a big one for myself personally. And then just like inner child work and I know you've done a lot of that as well, because we've talked about it in your academy, but you will come across things that like as an adult you're like, why is that upsetting, like why did that upset me? But then you like look at it from the view of your inner child and you're just like like I want to give you a hug. And that's what your inner child needs sometimes, because your inner child is still in you. That's a huge thing that people also, may not think about as well. So the gift with the Akashic Records is like the keepers help navigate you to what specific past life you might need to work on, or what moment with your inner child it's like needs to be healed.
Cool. I love that. It's so interesting because two other really like clear things that stood out to me in the reading that you did for me was when you asked what my soul's gifts are, the very first one and like the loudest one that came through was writing. And I have heard that from so many different sources in the past. And even like my mom, my entire life, my mom, it's really interesting. She doesn't project her opinion of like her own opinion of me onto me. And so when she says something in regards to like a talent or like something that she thinks is a really good idea, it always takes me by surprise, because usually it's just like whatever Kitty wants, she calls me Kitty, whatever Kitty wants, like I agree with, and like I'm going to support and like follow in suit and be like, absolutely. And she hardly speaks her mind surrounding it. And one thing she's always been like abundantly loud about is how talented of a writer I am. And
I didn't know that about you, honestly.
yeah, so when you were saying that, that was one of the moments that I screamed, because I started to write my book back in
Stop.
I started to write my book back at like the beginning of this year. Well, no, so in April, at the beginning of this year, I kept getting sick because I was doing some like past life stuff to clear shit out. And I feel like I just kept on like getting sick, like purging so much deep shit.
Yeah.
Because essentially in a past life, I know there's a past life where I was a slave owner. I like freed slaves, or I went back to like free the slaves and leave my husband. But in the past life, what I ended up doing was killing my husband and killing myself. And so I went through to purge a lot of that. And I, in this lifetime, just got so fucking sick for like, it was like 3 months. It was like a really intense like sickness that came through. And on the last one, I was just like, I'm so fucking beaten down, God. Like, I have no clue what you want me to do anymore. So, like, please tell me. And so, in the middle of the night, it was like 3 a.m. I got up and I couldn't sleep, and I took a bath and I was like shivering and shaking. And I got on my couch and I just like surrendered and was like crying. And I was like, whatever, like, God, whatever you want me to do, please tell me. And I got the message of write about your life as if it was a movie. And so I thought it was just like, okay, like script, like manifestation script, like start to plan the
Yeah.
plot of what it is that I want moving forward. And I realized it was later on in the year. Have you ever heard of the book, The Midnight Library?
Mm-mm.
So there's this book called The Midnight Library, which I feel like you would love because it kind of is the Akashic Records in a very different way. I
Ooh.
feel like presented in a very different way, but it's essentially like a book of like all of the paths somebody can take in their life if they were to like pick up that book and read it, and
Oh,
like shows
cool.
them the whole path of what it could be. And that was like a really pivotal moment for me reading that book because I had a come to Jesus moment where I was like, "Oh, I've been helping everybody pursue their dreams, but I haven't checked in with myself in a while like what my dream is." And I had this moment of like, "Oh, my dream is actually to write a book." And then the whole piece of like write about your life as if it was a movie came back
Mm-hmm.
into place. And I won't give like the full whole details on the book that I'm writing, but it's essentially fact inspired by fiction of like what my life has been, because my life is one giant movie and it's crazy that I'm even here and doing what I do based off of like
Yeah.
where I've been. But there's been some challenges over the past few months where I stepped away from the book, and like the whole thing of it just like completely got put on the back burner. And 2 days before you did the reading for me, I was just getting this like loud ass message of like, start writing the book again. And like, that is the path that you are supposed to walk down. And like, that is the path that you're fully supposed to pursue, that and in-person events. And those were the two things that you said inside of the reading of like, your soul gifts is like showing people this transformation of what is possible, showing them the abundance that is possible, but
Yeah.
through in-person work and writing.
I'm like speechless right now because I'm like, you guys, I didn't even know. That just like for me, that just like I love hearing that validation for myself too. That only allows me to get better at what I'm doing. And oh my gosh, that is so cool.
So crazy. Yeah. I was just like, there was like two of those moments in it where I was just like, oh my God, that's like so crazy. Because I think the other thing is too, that like can be talked about in so many different ways, but like you just said, it's so validating
Yeah.
when you have a reading like this done, that our souls have the map for us and are constantly trying to communicate the map to us if we can get out of our own way of like what
Hmm.
we think it's supposed to look like and what we think we have to control and able to make it happen. And one of the things that you kept saying in my reading was like balance and
Mm.
like play, versus I definitely have this tendency of like go make shit happen. And like,
The generator in you.
oh my God, I know. It's like it can be so intense. And like just to have that like reminder, because my soul's been reminding me of like, Kat, you get to have fun doing this. And if you're not having fun doing this, then like why do it?
Yeah.
But also, yeah, just to like know that we have that soul map and to be confirmed in it, what you're saying, like through the readings or through any of these different modalities and like energy blueprints that are
Oh
available.
my gosh, yes. That's like at the end of the day, that just makes me so happy. Like knowing that like I gave you that gift of just that validation and the confirmation, and it's just really helpful. And like myself, like getting my own readings done and working with people that I have trusted, it really helps accelerate your journey. Like
Yep.
two years ago, I had quit my corporate job. I started selling real estate when everyone in my life was like, that's not like a great decision right now. Like we're going into the fall and blah, blah, blah. And that winter or whatever. So like I live in the Midwest and snow. People don't like to move in the winter or whatever the stories that people have. My first year, my first like few months, I sold $1.5 million in houses. Cause
Yeah,
like
you did.
I knew, hell yes, like I knew I was going to do it and I was focused on that. And then like my journey just like I followed like the clues or like the signs or you know, the things you get in your head, the downloads. Sometimes, you know, like you're walking or when you're doing like mundane things and you get that little like, you can almost like hear something in your head, like listen to it, even if it
Mhm.
sounds crazy, because it leads you down this path. And like, I followed those signs and now I'm doing Akashic Records readings and I'm feeling like so in my purpose and so like aligned and authentic. Like I finally feel like myself.
So beautiful. And that's like in all of the things that I feel as though I talk about here on this podcast and like the avenues that you've explored and all of these like spiritual pieces that exist. I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's ultimately it and like why we come back to these things so that you can feel that sense of self, of like, oh yeah, it's not going to be found in all of these external things. It's always going to be found in like me staying true to myself and giving myself permission to explore.
Oh my gosh, 100%. 100%.
Beautiful. I absolutely love it. So for you, how often do you play in your Akashic records or like go explore the records?
Oh, for me personally, it's like almost a daily.
That's
A
so
daily.
fun.
I know. It's even if it's for a few minutes, even if it's just to like sit in the energy of it, because I also have two small kids. I had another since I had worked with Kat, I had another baby. He was totally like we wanted another, but he like came at a time to me that I was like, this is not great.
Yep.
But no, it worked out and like oh like I am just like so grateful how everything worked out. But like with having small kids, it's like getting that alone time is kind of hard sometimes. So showers are good. Like when you're alone in the
Hmm.
shower, just like and then like when I first wake up in the morning, sometimes I just like go in and just like ask for guidance on the day or, you know, what could I maybe do differently instead of,
Hmm.
you know, kind of my routine? What can I switch up to maybe discover something new today?
Yep. Beautiful. I love it. So, Miss Kayleen, the
Yeah.
question that I love to ask everybody on this podcast is what makes life rich for you?
Oh my gosh. Oh, when you say that, I really just think of like love and abundance, just like the richness of feeling like I'm whole. And like
Hmm.
the love and like when I say like the love I have for myself now is totally different than even 2 years ago. And like by me loving myself, it's almost like I feel like I can love everyone around me even more.
Yep.
And
Yep.
just yes, it just I feel it all in me and like that's what is making my life so rich, just the love and being able to share that with other people.
Absolutely. And what I'm hearing you say is like, it's all self-sourced.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Beautiful. So beautiful. I love it. So, for everybody who's listening to this that is curious, that wants to explore Akashic Records, that wants to know more about
Yes.
their energy, receive their energy blueprint, all of those good things, how can they connect with you and what do you have going on?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I'm at aligned with Kayleen. And right now, currently, so I have a very cool bundle going on. So I do have my energetic blueprints and my Akashic record readings. I have openings for live ones, which are super fun. In those we get to go a little more deeper since I have a little more time. But my latest and greatest is my soul purpose bundle. So kind of all the stuff that Kat and I were talking about to really build that foundation of, you know, trust in yourself and like, okay, what are the things that my soul made up for me in this lifetime? Like, what are the gifts I have? And you can get a soul purpose bundle and it will have your energetic blueprint. And I send you a recorded reading of it and then a recorded Akashic Records reading as well, which is really nice because, like, you can watch it whenever. You can take notes, you can replay it, keep it forever. And
Yep.
yeah, so I also have a podcast as well. So my podcast is called Aligned and you can find all that off my Instagram too. So
And I'll link everything down below in the show notes.
yeah.
So anybody who's wanting to go connect with Kayleen, definitely do so. I just want to reiterate, so fucking cool to see where you were when I first met you versus where you are now. Even just like we had a call, what, at the beginning of this year or the end of last year, somewhere in
I
that
don't
time
remember if
frame.
it's this year or last year. What year is it? I think it was in 23, maybe. Like we
23.
had a
Just
little
like
mid meet up and I was like, Kat, help me.
totally. And like to see the growth and just like how grounded you are in your soul's purpose, in your knowing, and this trust that you have for yourself is so beautiful to see. And I know that so much of that is a byproduct of the work that you're doing. So
Thank you so much.
absolutely. Well, thank you.